We got a TST recap with the one and only Alan Eugene Gordon. He brings us all the freshest takes from Cary, North Carolina, where they woefully underperformed, but they may have figured out the secret sauce for next year. We'll have to find out. First week under the new gaffer for Dax McCarty and Atlanta United. How have those things gone? And we're also going to touch on the U.S. men's national team. I think we got some things to talk about. A really underwhelming performance against Colombia, a big matchup against Brazil, and some questions about the roster and how it gets constructed moving forward. We got a good episode. Hope you guys enjoy it. Major League Journeymen, we are back, and Gordo, as far as we know, is disease-free.
This could be the ghost of Alan Gordon in front of us.
Alan Eugene Gordon, fresh off of a
call it what it is,
a round of 32 appearance. I don't even know how far you guys got. Underwhelming would be a great descriptor for probably comparable to how much talent is on the Atlanta United roster and being delivering similar comparable results right now.
Fair.
We also have an extremely handsome Dax McCarty. If you guys are just listening on Spotify, it is pretty impressive, the flow you got going right now, Dax. I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't change it. I think you are a 10 out of 10 right now and have definitely jumped over Gordo's look.
Gordo's a fine wine. Like a fine wine.
But I want to hear about TST. Can we start there? Let's start with the most impressive player that you saw. There are two that jump to mind for me, and my guess is you'll go to both of them. But I'm
Gargs, can we
neither one of them.
Gargs, before you get into that, can we just address one thing?
Yeah, of course.
The expectation I had of our colleague, our friend, our amigo, Alan Gordon, providing us any useful content. My expectations were at a 1.5 out of 10. And you know what he delivered for us? And everyone who follows us on social media at Major League Journeyman on Instagram, he delivered gold is what he delivered. And he was excellent. And he delivered an 8.5 out of 10. An 8.5? Yeah.
That took every ounce of me to do that.
I know it did. He hated doing it. He hated doing it. He hated asking the guys to do it, but he did it. And he got Ramondo and Evans and Lenny. And it was just flowing, and it was great. And Brad Evans, you're wrong. I would absolutely add to the vibes of the group. I know you're going to be recruiting me when I retire. I know Steve Fox will be knocking on my door. Knock, knock, knock. Because guess what? You guys are only going in reverse, buddy. All right. I don't see the improvement from year to year. I think GM McGee is going to have to make some changes, but I'll let Gargs continue. I just wanted to compliment you on your social media work.
I'll tell you what. After this season, both of my co-hosts here, your stock has gone way up. Gargs, we need some grinders. Gargs, I actually think I don't know how your body is these days, but you would be perfect for this tournament. We just need grinders, guys that hustle, guys that compete, and
that is what 7v7 is.
It's
what a long list of backhanded compliments.
It's no skill needed. No skill needed.
It was a lot of backhanded compliments.
Unbelievable. Gordo, the king of backhanded compliments. You really suck, but we could use you. Are you interested? We took all the flashy losers on our team, and how about that? They're not good.
Someone's got to carry the water. Guards.
It's kind of funny. I was thinking about it because I did tune into a couple of these streams, and I actually was playing with our U19s the other day, our academy teams. Me and Baggio played, and we won 11 games in a row. And we had, I'll tell you what, man, the passing and the link ups and just the little dinks and all of it. And I haven't played in a while, and it was so amazing. I was in my happy place because, dude, double the 18, 7v7, whatever you want to call it. It's the most beautiful part of soccer. Like, you get so many touches. It's fun. You score a ton of goals. Like, you're always in the game. And
besides 5v2, it is the most beautiful.
Okay, 5v2 is a lot of fun too. But double the 18 where you can shoot from anywhere. Oh, what a game.
Yeah.
What a game.
It's amazing. It's a great thing. We've talked about it last year. It's a great tournament. Let me get back to your original question. You wanted to hear about the two players, right?
No, I want to actually talk about me just for a little bit longer. Well, what I was saying, was the also for you guys, because I was watching you guys, and the smaller field does play into an older player still being successful, because you don't have to cover the ground that you're obviously covering in 11v11, which I think takes a lot of the aging process out of it. But I expected more from you. But now let's go back to your two players that you saw that you really enjoyed.
I mean, listen, this is not even close. It's not even close. Okay. Giovinco it looks like he just came, it looks like he's still playing at Toronto, and he just came for a little weekend. He's in prime shape. The guy is so nasty.
Do you think he could still play, Gordo? I know it's a totally different game, but do you think he could still play in MLS?
Yes, 1,000%. 1,000%.
It begs the question It begs the question where the differences of opinion are with him in Toronto, because I know there were reports about him maybe re-signing with Toronto. Like,
where is he? I thought he went to Saudi Arabia.
He lives in Toronto. He hasn't played professionally in a couple years.
Didn't he go to Saudi Arabia? Didn't they sell him?
Yeah, they did. No, and I think he went back to Italy and.
Oh, did he? Yeah, he went somewhere and it didn't work. I mean, he's just one of those guys that was like, yeah, I'm done. You know,
dude, I've said this before.
He is 37, but
I've said this before. He is, I think, hands down the toughest player that I've ever played against.
And that statement.
And I played against some greats. We played against some great teams. Like we lined up against Suarez when he was at Barcelona. Like we played.
Quick research.
He was unreal and so difficult to defend.
Still is.
He went 2018 was his last year in Toronto. Went to Al Hilal for 3 seasons, and then
cashed in.
Sampdoria for 2022 was his last stop. He only played 2 games, but it's been a couple years. You said 2022. It's been a couple years now, but I've seen rumors of like him and Toronto flirting back and forth, and I've only got to assume that maybe it was just like a salary issue. Because if I did see Gordo a few of his games, and he looked still like he had all the class in his boots that he does have. But I was like one guy that I loved seeing out there, Zat Knight, the dude that used to play at Fulham. He's like 6'8". You know what I'm talking about? Playing for Concaifa, which is hilarious. Yeah. Unbelievable that McAfee had a team out there. He was legitimately a man mountain. You could play him in the back against anyone, and he's probably going to win the physical battle. It was hilarious seeing a guy that big out there, because like when he was in the Prem, I think he was probably a little skinnier. I mean, he looks like an NFL player. He kind of looks like JJ Watt running around.
There were some NFL players out there.
I know.
There was. Yeah, I mean, you just compare like Giovinco, going back to him, and everybody, all of us that all played against him said the exact same thing that Gargs did. Was the toughest player and still is the toughest player. He was literally feared out there. He diced us up, and give Dayro a little shout out, because he can still do it too. He can still score goals. He's just one of those guys that's always going to be dangerous on one of those fields. And those two together kind of just have this understanding, dude. And it was pretty upsetting, pretty shocking. Did you see that video I sent out about who was going to win, NC or them?
You guys were all right,
dude. Right, like 2 seconds. If I was just kept it going, they scored this bicycle kick. Giovinco has a chance. Gets blocked, they go down and score a bicycle kick. So I could have had some pretty nice stuff there.
Giovinco and Biro were on Jimmy Conrad's team?
Yeah. And they had a good squad. They got upset. They should have won.
I'm kind of glad they didn't win, because if they did, Jimmy would have been kind of unbearable for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. For sure. Oh, yeah, for sure. So
continued to be unbearable?
Right. Yeah. Just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right.
So Gordo, let me ask the tough questions. Gargs wants to be the good guy and ask the easy questions.
Okay.
What's going on with Sneaky Fox? Because you guys do have.
No, we're diving in there. I like this.
I have to know, because I tune into my boys. I want to see the boys be successful. It's good to see our old pal from the Fire, Drew Connor, still leading TST in what would be slide tackles. I guess if slide tackles would be legal, but he definitely had the most yellow cards. No question about it. getting in Nani's space, which we'll address later. But what is happening? What's with you guys won 1 out of 4 games, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we got about as far as you can get winning one game. And I didn't get to celebrate once.
That's my point. What happened?
Dude, I wore a Speedo under my shorts, and I was going to get all the way down and celebrate, and we didn't win 1 game. So listen,
was that part of your pregame speech? Maybe that's why you wore the Speedo during the pregame speech.
No,
no one listened.
I will post when it gets sent to me. I will post my pregame speech. It's pretty epic. But dude, I gotta say, I think it was because of me. I really do.
You're the bad. You brought the bad vibes.
No, I was late to the tournament, dude, and these guys could not get the vibes going until I got there.
But didn't they win without you, and then they lost all their games after you arrived?
That's not really what we're talking about. That's really not what we're talking about.
Sorry, I thought we were talking about wins and losses.
It's a feeling. So, I mean, it's tough, dude. These tournaments are tough because you got a bunch of guys that don't know each other, haven't been with each other, and they're thrown in. And we, unlike a lot of other teams, we don't train. You know, we show up and we're like, we got to make a team. Yeah. So it takes a little while to be completely serious. So first couple games, you know, we didn't look our best. We knew we could do better. By the last game, I felt like we were peaking. So we played Nani in the last game. We lost 3 times getting chipped full field on our keeper. So it's not like we were getting hammered. Right. We were just making some mistakes that we continued to make. And we played.
Aren't the coaches supposed to be the ones making the adjustments here?
Well, you got to have coachable players, Gargs. You got to have coachable players. Okay. There's only so many times you can say, hey, remember when we got burned on that? Don't do that again. And then they do it, you know?
Well, you sub in, a field player in a goalkeeper jersey trying to, be aggressive and go for the win.
I mean, we can get into that. I felt bad for Sacha, AKA Alan Gordon, and we'll get into that as well. But Sacha, we're watching in the locker room, and Sacha's like, boys, when it gets down to 4v4, this is what I do. And you know how he talks. He's just like, this is my game. So we saw all these other teams pulling goalies and bringing it out. It was like the new strategy for the season. We had never practiced it. Sacha came in and we were doing well, but you take one shot. It's either got to be in the 40th row.
Exactly. Or it has to go in.
Or it's a transition. It's the 3v2, 2v1 drill.
Yes. And so that was our one mistake.
That's a Bruce Arena classic, by the way.
Oh, yeah, it's one of the best though.
Akam did really well to get his shot off, and it's just one of those ones you wish you could have back. We had total control. I thought we were the better team, and they made it all the way to the final. So we were this close, and we were really starting to vibe. And that's the great thing about this tournament is you got all these guys that are trying to figure out each other. And 3 days into it, you become like a family, right? And we were just a little bit late to the party, but like on that last day, I was so proud of like the team that we were because we were starting to really vibe. In the first couple of games, you got everybody wanting minutes. Yeah. Everybody is just like, it's total chaos on the sidelines.
And then at the end of it, everyone's like, nah, I'm good.
What? Like,
I got a hip.
Hold on, Gordo. Is there a method to the substitution madness? Like, what is the method?
I don't think we've figured it out. Mike McGee, poor McGee. He's like, I'm not coaching next year, dude. He's like, I don't want to keep guys on the bench. They're pissed. He's like, I don't need this heat. I don't need this smoke.
He's just wants to be in the GM.
Yeah, but like I felt bad for Sacha because he was essentially in the goal, and then did you see Nani run into his face? Take his shit off?
Yeah. I did see this. Let me set the stage.
Dude, if Sacha was not a media personality, he would have decked Nani in the face.
Yes.
I would.
That is legit the only thing that held him back in his head is like, oh, this is probably getting filmed. I'll probably lose my job on TV.
I think that would have set him into a different stratosphere if he would have done it. That would have been, I would have
probably would have
applauded. That would have been incredible.
No, I'm talking about the inner monologue going on.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing because so let's set the stage. Sacha and Nani played together in Orlando.
Yes.
And playing again there, you guys are playing the game and I watched the game and it was chippy as hell. There was like
Yes.
very minimal amount of soccer to be played. And I've
Yes.
always felt this way about Nani, about, yes, uber talent. Like, you don't have the career that he has if you're not a crazy talented player. But like, so a little bit of a screw loose up top is what
Yeah,
it looks like from the outside, because I don't know.
Quite a few. Quite a
And
few.
so,
Dude.
so what was going on? I know Sash did the crybaby thing. Was he
Right.
diving? We didn't really
So
see.
here's what happened. Let me paint the story for you. So I had forgotten that Sacha and him played together because Sacha didn't talk about it prior.
Right.
He didn't say, "Hey, I hate Nani." He didn't say anything.
Right.
No words spoken. We were just going to play the game.
Right.
And they're diving all over or Nani's diving all over the place. It was pretty ridiculous.
I saw it.
It was pretty ridiculous. And then his cronies were all coming in and like pushing for him and getting tough. And Sacha he said, "What are you, his security little bitch?" to one of the guys. And the guy was like, "Yes, I am, actually." He's like, you don't say yes. You say no.
Don't say yes. This isn't Messi we're talking about here, all right?
So that's just what's going on, right? And then Sacha goes over, he dives again, does the crybaby thing. We're all laughing.
That was hilarious.
Right. And then you just know Nani was waiting for it and then goes in his face.
Dude, he didn't even score the game winner. And he
didn't win
the length of the field. It was so
to get in
gross.
his face.
It was
with his shirt off.
It was the most embarrassing moment I've ever seen in my entire life. Granted, it's the round of 32, by the way.
Right.
And we had only won one game.
Right.
We were the lowest. What are you celebrating for? What are you?
It was crazy. I can't believe. I mean, Sasha's a pretty calm guy, all things considered. He's a better man than I. Because I would 1,000% have not even come close to sticking my hand out to shake his hand. I would have, at minimum, 2-hand push to the chest. And you know what? Nani's a big dude. He's kind of ripped. If he swings on me and we start a brawl, then we start a brawl. But you know what's being talked about on SportsCenter? That, all right?
Yes.
So it might have been great for the Sacha Kljestan brand. He must have had more power to him for having the computer he had, because maybe he didn't want a viral clip, but I couldn't believe he didn't do anything else. That was crazy.
Right.
Crazy.
And and to say a lot about Sacha, he kept it classy. He wasn't bad mouthing him, but I read between the lines and I don't think that they loved each other in Orlando.
What made you which lines were you looking at that you were
I mean, just all the crybaby thing and everything else. So I don't think they loved each other.
Well, Sacha's a friend of the pod. We'll get him on to confirm.
He's a friend of the pod. And what I was going to say, I'll just end with this. I would just felt so bad for him because, and maybe he'll never think of it again, but he had such a great career. And to have that heat, like when that stuff happens, you think about that stuff for a long time. And he's probably like, I should have punched him. And he's probably today like, damn it, I should have punched him. He didn't need that.
Maybe Sacha was waiting for his security, Alan Gordon, to go do the business for him. I know you would have enjoyed that.
I was on my way, and Lenny, and I'm telling you, Lenny Lenny was ready to manhandle that guy.
I could see him
he ran right past me, and then they shook hands, and then Lenny turned around. He's like,
I love that. I could see Lenny like a rabid dog in there, just waiting.
For sure. So
why doesn't he play? Why doesn't Lenny play? Is he what's going on with him? He doesn't want to be on the field or what?
No, I mean, you realize at a certain point you can't do it anymore. I think we had a few of those guys, we had a few guys, good dudes, great players in the MLS that got there and was like, dude, this is a little bit too much for me at 40,
I hear it.
And so it is, dude.
I saw a little bit of the team who won it, La Bombonera.
They're so good.
They are so good. Dude, they are so good. You guys lost like 5-0 to them.
They haven't lost an indoor game in 2 years. 2 years.
Quick trivia question, Gordo.
That sounds like a streets myth right there. What do they play in? They play in what?
They play in the indoor league, like the San Diego Soccer's league. They're in Chihuahua, Mexico.
MASL?
Yes, and they haven't lost in 2 years. And so this is where the tournament has to change this, dude. They can't have pro indoor guys playing. They're going to win every time.
Why? Because it's chipping away at your ego? Who gives a shit?
They want to win money. idiot.
You don't even do anything, Gordo. You don't even show up on time.
I bring the vibes, dude. It's huge.
We'll be the judge of that after your speech.
It's huge.
Gordo, quick trivia question before we move on. Do you know, and I want you to impress all of our listeners, do you know what La Bombonera is?
La Bombonera. That was a song by Richie Valens, right?
I love it. Oh, thank you.
No, what's La Bombonera?
You're right. Dan, you want to take this one?
No, I don't. I'm actually looking up.
Wow.
I want to see this.
No?
This is factual.
What is it?
It's wow. I'm disappointed in Dan. Thank you, Gordo, for that great answer. It's the stadium that Boca Juniors play in.
Ooh, really?
Called. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't see La Bombonera in MASL. Are you saying that just some of their players were?
No, that's their team, and we had 5 indoor guys that all verified that they have not lost in 5 or 2 years.
Maybe
they went 20. They went 24.
La Bombonera is not their team in.
Oh, okay. So they're called something. They're called Chihuahua something.
Yeah.
Okay. They're very good.
Yeah, good to watch.
And the indoor guys on McAfee's team were also very good.
These indoor guys, that's their game, dude. They're freaking amazing. They're amazing.
So what did you think about like you had said that you would make one change to not let indoor players play. You've been a part of this thing for 2 years now. Is that one, would you really actually do that? But 2, are there changes that you would make to make it better or to improve it?
The indoor guys, there needs to be these guys. So there was a team, Newtown Pride.
Newtown Pride or whatever.
They won it last year.
Right.
And they had no problems. They were being booed every game. So we started going out to the games. They were booed every single game because everybody figured out that you couldn't press them because they're so good. So they would just sit back and the goalie would just stand on the ball for minutes and minutes and minutes. And they were not even bothered about the crowd booing them or whatever. It was just a very boring game. So, these are not my ideas. Obviously, I'm not an idea guy, but some of the things that were being thrown around was like, you can only pass it back to the goalie one time in your own half, right? Like you could do it once.
Got to go forward.
Got to go forward.
I like that.
Second half, something like that. I just think maybe if you're getting paid as a professional in the year that you're playing the tournament, like 2025, I don't think that you should be able to play in this game because these guys are all pros, and obviously outdoor guys can't do it because they're in season. But these guys are like tournament like hustlers.
They're jokers. They're all jokers on teams.
This is what they do. They go around in beach soccer and indoor, and they try to win money. This is what they do for a living, and they're playing against guys that are 45, don't play anymore.
Isn't that kind of what like all professional soccer players do? Go around and try and win games for money?
No, idiot. They play for their domestic league. That's what they do. And they try to win the championship. That's what they do.
Okay.
It sounds like some sour grapes to me, Gargs. That's all.
What? I don't know. That's what I would change.
Hey, you might have a point if you didn't have indoor guys on your team, but you have indoor guys on your team.
That's true. And I like our indoor guys.
They're your best players, so keep them.
Right. Yeah. So anyway.
Well, I will be eagerly anticipating what Sneaky Fox does in year 3 because something's got to change. I think a lot of expectations on Sneaky Fox let a lot of people down, let me down. I
lost a lot of money in Vegas. I put money
on soccer, but Dan does.
That wasn't.
All I will say in closing is I think I already mentioned this. I was telling you, Gargs, man, it is something special. Nani literally said that this is the best team he'd ever played.
That's a disgrace that he said. It's a disgrace.
But this is what you guys don't understand.
I felt like he was going to break into tears after saying something like that.
But that's the feeling that this tournament gives to guys that had careers and go back. And we felt it last year. We didn't get a lot of celebrating this year. But it was still amazing, dude.
The tournament vibes are they are off the charts because you're spot on, man. Everyone says, you see all the social media posts after it, and everyone says the exact same thing. Like, I couldn't believe how I felt going through this. And is it just like, give me a little bit more, Gordo. Like, I understand like you're around it, but like, what is it? Is it like the smell of the grass? Is it hearing the fans? Is it the wind? Like, what does it that gets these guys to that point?
You just hit it on the head. Do you remember Field of Dreams when Shoeless Joe Jackson comes out and he explains what he gave up because he got suspended? You know, it's all that. It's the feeling you get warming up in front of a crowd and right before you're going to go on, and in the locker room as you guys are broing each other up and strategizing and getting next to somebody and being like, okay, hey, when you go this way, we're going to go this way. And Dax is still living this life. He does this, but we that's what you miss, dude. And then you go out there and you battle, and then the celebrations, or even the feeling of loss, you know, the feeling of that picking each other up. It's just something that you can't recreate. There's no drug or alcohol or anything on this earth that can recreate. And that's what's great about being a professional athlete. And when it's gone forever. And you never get to do it, except they've created something that gives us this opportunity again. And then, you know, it's like kind of like I imagine what the Olympics would be. There's like a player area, right? And so you're walking around village. And there's all these teams in there. And then if you were in the MLS is so small, dude. If you played any extended years in the MLS, you know a million guys. Yeah. And the joke was, I mean, a bunch of guys were like, Gordo, what's up, man? And I was like, hey, dude, I don't remember. I have no idea who these dudes were. And like, I must have played with them somewhere down the line. I was like, what's up? How are you? How's the kids? You know, I don't even know. And it's just happened everywhere. I mean, Kobe Jones was there, and you know, a bunch of names.
Chris Paul, dude, I didn't know Chris Paul was a co-founder of the tournament. That's cool.
Yeah. Hey, before we move on, okay, last thing. So after Sacha gets into this thing with Nani, okay, everybody in the tournament, every fan thought I was Sacha. So it was a joke. When he came on the show, we were like, hey, remember that one time 20 years ago, the guy came up to me and was like, hey, sign my autograph. And then he thought I was Sacha, right? It hasn't happened since. It happened 37 times in the 2 days after our loss. So the tournament director, I'm sitting there watching one of the games with my boys. He comes up, he goes, slaps me on the chest. He goes, hey, man, I just want to let you know that thank you for not retaliating to Nani when he's in your face. And like Kellen Rowe and like a bunch of dudes are around. And I was just like, it was the first one. I was like, what is he talking? I was like, he thinks I'm Sacha. And I was like, you know what? Somebody's just got to be classy. I just went with it. And I had a 5 minute
no problem, man.
No problem. 5 minute conversation. I was signing autographs as Sacha. Kids were coming up to me and they're like, hey man, we loved your career. And the last one, what's his name? Yeagley, you know, the Indiana coach.
Yeah.
We were talking to him and someone's like, hey, this is Sacha. And they're like, hey, I loved watching your career. And I'm like,
you don't have the energy to correct them.
No, my kids call me Sacha now. They watch the entire thing. And I probably signed 15 Sacha autographs.
Dude, how incredible is that? That means that Sacha Kljestan has trademarked the mustache. The soccer mustache is now owned by Sacha Kljestan.
At least in American soccer, for sure.
It is. I was texting for him. I was texting the group. I was like, it's so exhausting being a television personality.
And then he's going back and telling people, oh man, I got confused for Alan Gordon. It sucks being a podcaster.
Yeah, no shit. He's like, nobody came up to me and thought I was Alan Gordon.
Not one time.
Sounds fun, Gordo. I tell you what, I want to try to. I will make it there eventually.
You'll be in.
I don't know as a player, but definitely as something.
For sure.
Well, you guys are gonna have to shake it up. I'm interested to see as well what McGee does next. But speaking of shaking things up, while you were gone, Gordo, Dax and I had the podcast of the year, and we did speak about Atlanta United, and we talked about Pineda moving on and Rob stepping in, Rob Valentino. So I'm interested to hear kind of how that first week has gone, Dax. Like how has the time away? I mean, it was interesting timing that they did it because all the players were gone, all the players were on vacation. Yeah. So there was a gap there where it was like 4 or 5 days where you're out of town, have the opportunity to kind of probably let some of that stuff settle in the minds and hearts of the team, and then kind of reconvene. What was the opening message from Robbie?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. Rob was he's a really classy guy. I think first what he did was just acknowledge that, for an interim coach, a guy who works with the staff that gets let go, not just one guy, but 3 guys. Right. Mm-hmm. I think he's really classy in acknowledging that, he was working with these guys day in, day out for multiple years, and the respect he has for them is at a very high level. Right. And so I think the main theme was, how do we, obviously thank them and appreciate them. But my job, and now what I am tasked with, is what we talked about a little bit, Gargs. Kind of the advice that you gave me was, how do we help the entire club move forward and turn the page? Because it does us no good to linger on the unfortunate circumstances that got us here. And so his opening message, it was great, man. It wasn't too wordy. It was short. It was sweet. It was like, listen, I believe in this room, right? I believe in the guys we have here. And, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I will do things a little bit differently, but I also think that, the pieces that we have in place here, we can utilize them, to get the best out of the team. And so it was definitely a weird first day, but a first day in which we all tried to just acknowledge that we need to be better and we need to move forward and turn the page. And so we had training on Saturday, Sunday, and then a day off. And now we've gotten back after it this week, preparing for Houston. And there's a good energy in the group. That's what I'll say. I'll say that, like, we've tried to move on. We've tried to acknowledge and realize that we're not in a good place where we're at in the season right now, but we needed maybe a little bit of a reset. And we got that with the days off. And now with a new voice, the training sessions have been a little bit different. And you can see there's a pop. I haven't been a part of, we talked about this, I haven't been a part of a mid-season coaching change in a while, but I think there's a natural evolution when that happens of, you get a little bit of a training pop where there's a little bit more energy. There's a little bit more juice in the tackles. Some of the exercises that you're doing are different, and it's exciting when you're doing things that you haven't done in a little while or you've never done before, right? And so it's a fresh voice. It's a new voice. Rob has been here before. And I think that we are going to try to move forward in a positive way. I mean, that's really all you can do. So I'll be really curious to see how we set up. We haven't really gotten too deep in the waters of like tactics and formations, because Rob is smart. He wants to layer in things slowly. He knows he can't just throw all these different concepts at guys who have been used to doing something for so long and just expect it to be perfect. And that's the best part about it, is the message is, it's not going to be perfect, but let's absolutely move forward together in a good way. So it's been really good.
You partly answered my question, Dax. Is, I've been a part of several, right? Yeah. And it's interesting because it goes 2 ways. I mean, 3 ways. Usually, sometimes the staff is like, "This is my guy. I'm leaving too." Sure. Sometimes the staff is so ingrained with the head coach that's been fired that he keeps tactics and things the same. And then sometimes, 1 or 2 times, I have actually been a part of assistant coaches that come in and you can tell they were sitting on the sideline, not agreeing, probably secretly not agreeing with everything that the coach did. So, and you partly answered that, but do you see Rob taking a different approach, or do you think that it's just going to be some minor tweaks as far as you think there's going to be major or minor tweaks, I guess? I think
he is going to take a different direction in how he wants us to play, because what we were doing before was not working. Right. And so, like I said, we haven't gotten too far into the weeds on any specific tactical things yet. where he's starting to layer in some different concepts. And one thing that I can share is like at times, if you guys watched us play, at times we had a lot of possession, but really it wasn't really getting us anywhere. Right.
Wasn't purposeful.
There was not a lot of purpose to it. Right. And so we would have the ball, we would make a team come out, chase, we would maybe go back to Brad and then play to the other side. And we wouldn't unbalance opponents with our possession, I think, as much as we would have liked to. And so, yeah, there's an aspect of Rob that's like, guys, I love playing like this. I love having the ball and controlling the ball through possession, but I also like making sure that we're dangerous and getting our attacking players running towards goal and in behind backlines. And that's something that we tried to do, but not at a high enough clip, I think. And so that's something that like, I think we're going to try to focus on is like, can we be more dangerous with our possession? Because that's something that you guys know, and especially in, I think, modern soccer now, if you can do that and be dangerous in possession, there's going to be transitional moments naturally that happen in the game. And transition now is such a huge part of the game. You have to be good at scoring goals, making the least amount of passes. 3 passes, bam, you're in behind a back line, you get a shot on goal. Like that is a really strong recipe for success for most teams. And so, look, little things, little tweaks. I mean, I'm sure you guys will see it in Houston, how he wants to play and the formation that we'll play. So it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out going forward.
Gordo, you had mentioned a couple of times. I was talking with Dax about kind of the two that I lived through, and they were very different. Like in Toronto, I went through one where Preki was relieved and removed of his responsibility, and Dasso came in, and there was definitely that bump that I think Dax was referring to. But it was almost interesting because half the team was okay with Preki, and then the other half of the team was like really against everything that they were trying to do. And when they switched it, it was almost like this kind of ambiguity, and it was kind of uncertainty, but there was definitely, it did lift the negatives, right? Whereas
mostly the guys that weren't playing under Preki or getting any.
Well, so it was kind of weird because this was like D-Row and Julian de Guzman and some of these guys that had just kind of like had enough of the way that Preki can grate on you. And then there were other guys that were like, well, I deal with it. This is just kind of standard operating procedure. So there is that bump where the sessions for sure changed and the vibe around things changed. And I think the just general cloud of, kind of disappointment, gets removed. But then we were also together in San Jose where Yallop quits 5 games into the season. And Wadi, longtime assistant, comes in. And no disrespect to Wadi, but it felt like everyone had lost their dad. Like Yallop was such a beloved figure that it was almost like, and for me coming in, I wasn't a part of the Goonies the year before. You guys were obviously like trending in this, incredible place, which is ultimately what made me make the decision to leave the Chicago Fire, which I loved, to come to San Jose to play for Yallop, to have him quit 5 games into the season and be like, wait, what the fuck was this? This is not what I signed up for, because it very much felt like a funeral. Like the locker room was dead after that, like dead. Yeah. And we probably never even talked about this, but I wanted to get your opinion on, you've gone through it a couple different times. What was the best coaching change that you've been a part of that went from wherever it was in that stale place or that negative place or that underperforming place to what you saw as a marked improvement?
Oh, Gargs, that's a tough one, man. Well, I would say the best one was when Ruud Hewlett got released and Bruce came in. That might have been in the off season. I'm not exactly sure. I think Ruud got let go midseason. Kobe was the interim, and even Kobe did a better job than Ruud, in my opinion. So that was probably the best change, system. I mean, one into the next.
Sure.
That was the best one for me, because Ruud had just lost. When a coach loses the locker room, there's a big problem, and the guys won't play anymore. And we all know it's just almost impossible to win, especially when you're on that downward spiral, and that's why they're getting fired anyway. So that was probably the best one for me. I was still a part of some teams to where it didn't matter if we got Pep in there. We weren't going to turn it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's those ones, but I am really interested in this Atlanta move because you talk to everybody, right? Everybody, there's not one person that disagrees that this roster should be producing more than it has, right? And so the change needed to be made. They made it. I think they did it at the right time. And we'll see what Rob will do with this squad and how he's going to change it. And maybe this is just one of those instances, and I can't come up with any off the top of my head of other teams I haven't played for that have had a coaching change with a roster like this that have gone on to really soar and sail. I'm not sure if you guys can think of any, but if any teams are capable of it, this is certainly a roster that can do it.
Do you remember any one thing in particular that stood out to you that Kobe brought or Bruce brought where it was like, this is the secret sauce? Because we were talking about this, like Rob Valentino has also been through this before. Like he's been an interim manager. He's got experience in it. I would have to think that at this point, aspirationally, he definitely wants that job and probably should be a front runner for the job. Yes. He's got enough of a runway now to get results. And, we've talked an awful lot about, okay, well, you don't have your players or you're dealing with injuries or you don't have a roster that you want. It'd be tough to argue that Rob doesn't have a roster full of enough talent to not get results in this league, which could put him in a position where, Garth ultimately gives him the run and says, okay, this team's yours. You've done enough with it. We've seen what we know who we have. Like he's not a product that they don't know what they're getting. He's been around that organization for probably like 6 years, probably from the start. Right.
Easiest.
Is there one thing that sticks out?
Yeah. Easiest question you've ever asked me. A plan, a solidified plan. It doesn't even have to be the right one. It just has to be a plan because a lot of the times, and I'm not sure if Dax feels this way, but I know with Rude, we didn't know what we were doing. And you know that feeling when you get into a room and you've just had a loss and you're like, what are we doing? What you're doing the Taylor Twellman. What are we doing? We don't have a plan, right? And if he comes in with a specific plan, which Dax already touched on, he's got some things that he wants to slowly implement and has identified, and he's going to work it in. We are good at possession, but we need to be a little bit more, we need to be a little bit more direct, right? Direct with with the possession that we have and have an actual end plan and maybe get a shot or a corner in a certain amount of time, instead of just dilly-dally on the ball. So he's already on his way of creating an idea and an identity for this team, which I think was lacking.
Can I also say one thing about Rob and something I talked to him about and something that is really impressive to me about a coach like him, a younger coach, is this is the second time he's been put in the situation as being an interim coach. And one of the first things he said to me when he called me after this happened is, I'm going to bring in another coach. And I'm going to bring in someone who is a veteran, experienced guy in this league, someone who will provide a different voice to me and someone who will challenge me and not just agree with everything I say. And that is like worth its weight in gold. If you have a guy who is humble enough to say, I don't have all the answers, and maybe the areas I struggle in, which I know the areas I struggle in, this person can provide a balance to that and help me with that. And this person won't just say yes, and they will challenge me to be better and challenge me on certain ideas I have. And we've already brought that coach in. I don't know if it's been made public, so I'm not gonna say his name on this. I'm sure it will come out eventually. But a guy that I have actually, funny enough, this won't surprise the dinosaurs, as you know, I played with a lot of guys.
The Journeyman has played with this coach before.
I have played with this coach before.
What's his initials, Dax? What's his initials?
But he is a guy who has been a head coach in MLS before. This is fun. This will be like a little guessing game.
Yeah, this will be a game.
Maybe I'll tell you off pod, but you'll find out eventually. I'm sure people will find out because he's been training with us for the last 2 days. And he's a guy who I like the way he sees the game too. So It remains to be seen, obviously, how well things work out. But I like the balance of Rob and this person, and I think it's the right move. So, anyways, that's
interesting. I would say I applaud Carlos Bocanegra or Garth Lagerwey or the combination of the two to give Rob some leash to feel like he actually might be in a position to bring on an assistant that is not just pulled up from the academy system. And I mean, no disrespect to those guys, but like this is a different operation at this point.
It is.
Yeah, so that's great. Good for them and good for you. I hope that works out. Last piece that I wanted to touch on before we jump off here is I think the muddied plan of the U.S. men's national team coming off. I think I would have to consider it a pretty humbling loss to Colombia for a group that really prides themselves on, at this point, not just getting results, but being considered a top tier country. To lose 5-1 is not. That's not a good result. It's not a good result to certainly hang your hat on, to be walking into tonight's game against Brazil. Those are real challenges, and you definitely run the risk of those results, right? When you sign up for games like this against competition like that. We saw that with Canada and their first result. We were texting about that. Dax, the Netherlands, right? Getting their doors blown off. These things happen. Dax, you watched the game. I didn't catch the game. Two-part question. Was the result indicative of the game? Number one. And number two, do you have a different expectation for tonight?
The result was indicative of the game. The U.S. were sloppy and very uncharacteristically poor in possession and kind of meandering in a way that I haven't seen from them in a long time. And there was a moment in the beginning of the second half where they had a little bit more control and they scored the goal, and you thought they would go on to maybe get something out of the game, even though they hadn't played well. Colombia was the better team throughout, but then the substitutions that Greg made and the changes that were made and the players that came on, the level of the game went down, and it was very sloppy. And Colombia, look, I kind of touched on transition a little bit earlier, absolutely destroyed the U.S. in transition, just destroyed them, set up traps all over the field, and was almost just goading the U.S. midfield and backline to just play into their traps. And hey, here's 10 yards of space. Why don't you go ahead and give it to this guy so we can pounce on him and turn the U.S. over and go and attack with all of our good attackers. And I don't think it's going to be much different against Brazil unless the U.S. is exponentially better on the ball and unless they're exponentially more tight amongst themselves in the back line. And I've talked in the past about guys getting games and playing time and how playing time matters. Matt Turner doesn't look sharp. I rate him. I think he's a good goalkeeper. He doesn't look sharp. The second goal is a goal I think he should save. So you have guys at these different various points in their careers in these different clubs, and they're playing at big clubs, and some of them aren't playing a lot of minutes. And it bleeds into the sharpness in the national team. And that's what we've seen. And I go back to the same question that we have asked on this podcast. And I think fair enough, probably a lot of people have asked about the Greg Berhalter era, because I think overwhelmingly we would all agree it's been pretty successful in terms of the trophies he's won, in terms of the success at the World Cup and how the U.S. did. But other than beating Mexico a ton, a bad Mexico a ton, and winning some of these important trophies, there hasn't been a performance against one of these top teams where I've said, yes, this is what I want to see from this team, and this is what the U.S. needs to do in major tournaments to be successful. I haven't seen it. I just haven't, and I don't anticipate they're going to beat Brazil. I think they're going to lose, but they will. I think they'll play a little better. They can't play much worse. But we're getting to that point now, guys, where I've said this in the past. They hired Greg back. It's a 4-year cycle. You can lose to Brazil 8-0. They're not going to fire him. If he doesn't do well in Copa America, then we're having a really serious conversation, because you're kind of teetering right now on the brink. Like, is this team actually taking a step forward with him as the manager, or are they just kind of holding in a holding pattern? That for me is a big thing. And so the U.S. is going to get out of their Copa America group. They're just by sheer talent better than Bolivia and not Uruguay, but whoever the third team, and Panama, right? But I don't know, man. I think a lot more of it now goes into like what it looks like aesthetically. Like, are we playing well? Are we dominating games? I think this is
and that's a weird separation, right? Because like you can't please everybody. So half the world wants to see like this beautiful game and feel good about it, and then the other half wants to get a result, and it doesn't really matter how it looks, right? As long as we got a result, we sit back, and then both sides of it will be like, I don't really care that they played great. We didn't get the score, and then the other side will be like, well, all we did was sit back. It's so ugly. I don't even want to tune in. And you're getting results. It's a weird space because you can think back to all the U.S. managers and the way that they set up our teams, and some of them would do a little bit of both, right? Like they.
Let me posit you guys one thing. Why do we have players playing at some of the biggest clubs in the world, and bar a few occasions where we play bad teams and we look great? Why is it that every one of those players looks really good for their club, and then they come into the national team and they look a little bit a level below what they do for their club teams? Is it continuity? Is it confidence? Is it coaching? There's a lot of questions for me because we have these players playing at big clubs. But if you look at the national teams of the past, the 2002s, maybe the 2010s, I look at the national teams of the past and I say, this is a team performing at a level greater than the sum of its parts. I look at this national team and I say, this is a team performing less than the sum of its parts.
I can answer what I see. I don't see a roster construction that has a real backbone of a group. And that's not calling out the players as in like they're not strong or the players don't have a backbone. What I'm trying to say is I feel like in national teams past, we've had the bulk of our players playing in a domestic league. And we would sprinkle some of these superstars in from wherever, and whoever those superstars may be, the Clint Dempseys or the Landons or a Gooch, Yewu, who was playing overseas. And it would be parts of the group. But the main group, similar to what you were talking about, Gordo, you had a bunch of the best versions of grinders that were going to grind out results. And then you'd sprinkle a little bit of talent on top. I feel like now I see a group that is all of those essential kind of superstars that are going all over the place. Nobody is consistent, like in terms of like, are they the best at where they're playing? They're not consistent in games. They're not consistent in minutes. Nobody's even really in a centralized league or a part of the world. And now it's just a bunch of players that kind of come in and are, wearing a uniform that, I wouldn't discredit their loyalty to our country or to to wearing the badge or any of that. But it does feel very disjointed. It just doesn't seem like a team. And I go back to like, okay, well, what is this? How is it constructed? Because it seems like there's one player from Italy, there's one player from Netherlands, there's one player in France, there's one player in South Africa, there's one player in England, or two players in England, there's another one in the championship, then there's two players that are brought up from MLS, but one's in Cincinnati and one's in LA. And it just feels like, almost the way that you're kind of describing like the first 48 hours of TST, where you're just kind of trying to get to know each other and figure this shit out. And then all of a sudden the game's over. You're on another private jet back to your league that you're going to, and it's over. And it's like, whereas I feel like previous iterations of the national team, we've placed such an emphasis in this country on sending players out of our country, which I get it. Financially makes a lot of sense. Best leagues in the world, I can agree with that. But the games and like the camaraderie and the nuances of knowing the way that people play on a day in, day out basis, I feel like is gone from our national team, from the pool, because everybody is spread so thin.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you are saying. It's really tough to figure out why, and I understand that, because where my mind goes is this is the first generation of player where it feels like it used to be when you get called into the national team from the MLS, you were in a different category of MLS player, and you held so much pride in that, right? Mm-hmm. And now it seems like the moves to these big clubs have superseded the national team. And I think that's what you're getting at. And it looks that way, right? Like these big moves to Juventus and all these other clubs, AC Milan, those are the big tickets. They'd rather play for these clubs. And it's almost like a job to come back and play for the national team. I know they don't feel that way. I know they want to take pride, but it just kind of feels that way. And that sense of unity and pride to be on that isn't the same. And it's not going to be the same. I don't think that US is unique in that either.
No,
I think that there's a lot of,
but these dudes are blazing trails. Like these dudes are blazing trails in different ways.
That
right? I think to your point, it deprioritizes the national team.
Sure. It does. So I think that we are on the brink. I think that these players are so good. They're some of our best players we've ever produced. And your initial thing was like, why are they playing better with the club team? Because their club team is stacked. They are stacked with talent around them that makes them better. And then when they come back to the national team, the onus falls on them to step up and be these big players. I'm not sure that these young kids have ever been in that situation, been the man, held that type of, aside from Pulisic, who else is doing that? And McKinney maybe, and maybe Adams, but a few of them, right? Everybody else is just kind of a piece in their big squad, and now they got to come back and be the man and learn how to handle that. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
I would hazard a guess that Greg sees this team and he sees the best version of them being played in a 4-3-3. But with all that being said, if things don't go well against Brazil and the Copa America is pretty underwhelming and he's feeling a little bit of heat on his seat, I would be curious to see if he will change a little bit, if he will mix up the formation a little bit, try guys in different positions. And just if he has that backing from the U.S. Soccer Federation that, hey, and maybe he does, maybe it's no matter how we do in Copa America, you're fine until the World Cup. But we need to see some progress. I wonder how stubborn he'll be to continue with the way that he wants to play and the formation he wants to play. And, it's hard to talk about national team coaches and what they do because there's not a lot of national team coaches that get 2 cycles, right? Like Greg is one of the rare few national team coaches that gets another cycle. For what is it now, guys? 6 years? For 5-6 years, he's been using these guys and playing in a very similar way and to mixed results, some great results, some not so great. Right. And so look, to me, the friendlies, not necessarily the Copa America, but the friendlies that we're going to play in the next couple of years, I think need to be used to experiment and to try out different things, maybe a plan B. If things aren't working, if you want to play a 4-3-3, and it's not working and you go down a goal or you don't feel like you're playing well, does the U.S. national team have a plan B? That's what I want to know.
I don't know if they have a plan A.
They do have a plan A. Greg talks about it all the time. They play in a 4-3-3. They want to use the ball to unbalance opponents. And
sure, I get that. But I also feel like it looks different every time I see them play.
Yeah, good. Maybe that speaks to the consistency of the players coming back and forth.
I mean, I feel like I'm sure they have a plan A, right? That's probably wrong of me to say, but I don't feel like it's consistent enough to what you're talking about, Dax, where he's been in this position, their staff has been in this position for as long as they have been, to not really roll out a consistent feel.
Yeah. And I will say this, it is a bit Serginho Dest, for how maddeningly frustrating he can be to watch play. And for how much of a liability he can be at times defensively, he's a massive loss for this team. He is a creative hub from fullback, one of the most technical players that we have. So look, this is not to disparage any other fullback on the roster or on the right side of the field. Joe Scally played against Colombia. He was okay. Guy plays in the Bundesliga, clearly has quality. Right. But he's
not Serginho Dest, dude.
He's a big drop off from Serginho Dest. And the way that Serginho combines with Weston and with Tim Weah and the way that he unbalances teams going forward and just with his little skill, we don't have a lot of guys that can do what he does. And so that's a huge, huge loss. So you can't really play the same way that you wanted to play with him when you don't have him there. It's a huge, I think it's a big test to figure out how best to move forward without a guy who is a big creative piece for you.
But doesn't it also say something to you, Dax, that like I could ask you both, okay, who's our best 11? And have you ever seen them on the field together?
Right. We would all say a different
answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think it will certainly be interesting to see what happens tonight. Obviously an incredible test against Brazil. Which is usually, to be fair, when the U.S.
does step up.
That's when they step up.
We can't play any worse. All right. We can't play any worse than we did against Colombia. So we'll be up for it for sure.
In Orlando, big Brazilian population, will be tough. It's going to be, I don't know what the weather is.
It's going to be hot. You know,
it's going to be hot.
Oh, it's going to be hot. Oh, man.
And they don't mind that. It's not like playing, Switzerland there.
I'm nervous. Vinny's got some dreads now. That's scary.
Vinny's the man, dude.
He's been hanging out with the Jigga Man. All right, here's a question for you. Do you think that MLS and US Soccer or whoever is pulling the strings at this point, have they reached out to Pep yet?
Oh my God. No.
No?
I don't think so.
He's in Boston, bro. He's in Boston.
He was wearing a backwards hat at the NBA Finals. Pep loves the U.S., so I guess it's not that crazy of a question, but no, I don't think so.
They're spending a lot of money right now.
Why not Klopp, dude?
You would go bankrupt paying Pep what you'd have to pay him to get him to coach the U.S. national team.
Would you go bankrupt though?
No. Absolutely.
Me and you would not be able to afford this. The powers that be would be able to afford this.
They are sitting,
you know who I go bankrupt
on
for?
A truck of money, dude.
You know who I go bankrupt for? I go bankrupt for Jose Mourinho. Get him in here. He would be pure electricity, dude. Listen, he's going to Turkey. All right, it's gonna
come on, dude. Have Pep pay Pep whatever he wants just for the U.S. World Cup, U.S. cycle. I mean, are we not quadrupling down on this?
Dude, how much money are we making for the World Cup? Give him all the proceeds.
Give it all to him.
Give it all
the proceeds. No, you got to give him more.
We're gonna break even. We're gonna break even, and we're gonna make it to the semis.
I mean, who's our Kevin De Bruyne?
Listen? MLS isn't giving it to the players, so it's okay. They don't need it. They're not going to spend any more money moving forward.
All right, listen. I've had a change of heart. If all the Canadian owners of MLS teams can pay Jesse Marsh, then you can get Arthur Blank to throw in a couple million to Pep. All right, I've just decided. Okay,
I think he's saving right now. He's paying an interim coach. He's got a couple shekels laying around.
He's in the U.S. That's all I got to say. Boston courtside seats.
I told you guys. I saw Pep. I met Pep one time. It was at a Knicks game.
Seriously?
Yeah. We were both, me and Ryan Mira we were high up on Thierry's good guy list, and he gave us his Knicks tickets. And
there you go.
We saw Pep under at the bar where all the big timers go. It was great.
All the big timers hang out at halftime.
It was great. He was looking at us like, who are these jokers? And I was like, I'm friends with Thierry. He was like, oh my God, tell him I said hi. It was great. It was awesome.
And they hate each other. Oh no, they like each other. Zlatan hates Pep.
There it is.
All right, gentlemen.
To see how it goes tonight.
Last chance saloon. I need a prediction out of both of you. Dax, you're up first.
Brazil 3-1.
Gordo.
That was my pick. I'm going hot take. I'm going 1-1.
Oh, that is spicy, Gordo.
Draw.
1-1.
Well, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out in about 2.5 hours, and this is gonna come out 2 days after the game. So
that's all right.
That's fine. At least we have it on record. All right.
I'm going 2-0. 2-0 Brazil. 2-0 Brazil.
Come on, US boys, prove us wrong.
We'll
see you out there. Thanks for tuning in.